Everybody says that they hate HOAs. For some people, they legitimately hate the entire premise of an HOA. The fact that someone can have any say on your personal property is somehow un-American. However, I venture to say that those who claim to hate HOAs don't actually hate the idea or the notion of an HOA. What they really hate is what happens when three specific things go wrong, and all three of those things are fixable. Number one are petty violations. You know, that letter that your trash can was left out for 2 hours while it was pouring rain. Number two is special assessments, the $6,000 bill that you didn't see coming. And number three are the crazy egomaniac board members who's only on the board for himself or herself. You know the type that I'm talking about. By the end of this video, you'll know what the three really mean, how to fix them, and the order to fix them in, because the order matters more than you think it does. I'm Joe Braun, I'm the founder of Solume, but we'll talk more about that later. Now, people will tell you that they hate the rules, the ultra-specific paint colors, the grass height, the fence that they're not allowed to build. I understand it, but I just don't buy it, because the rules are also the very reason those people like living in the HOA, so you don't have some random neighbor bringing the whole neighborhood down with his 40-year-old motorhome. Nobody's actually thrilled about Cousin Eddie parking the motorhome in the driveway for 8 months and draining it into the storm drain. Those rules exist for a reason.
Shitter was full!
Yeah.
The rules aren't the problem. Enforcement is. Nobody's mad that there's rules about the trash can. They're just mad that they got a violation letter about the trash can being left out for too long. An HOA isn't inherently bad. It's sort of like money. Money can do the most amazing things and can help a lot of people, or it can become a tool of corruption that produces unthinkable evil. In an HOA, it can either pave the road and keep the pool open, or it can fund somebody's ego. The association isn't the problem. It's what's running through it and how it's being run. If you're a board member, here's the position you're likely in. Somebody asked you to join the HOA board at a barbecue, and you said yes. Now, you've inherited a budget you didn't write, a contract you didn't sign, and a group text of neighbors who are furious at you personally for a system that was broken long before you even got there. My honest read, most board members are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to do the best they can. I've talked to hundreds of board members. Most of them are good people. There are bad actors, and we'll get to them. But most of the people getting yelled at when they walk the neighborhood are volunteers in over their head, or they just don't have the right systems in place to support them. And this isn't a problem only with self-managed communities. Managed communities are sometimes the biggest reasons why people hate the HOA. Not the neighbor across the street, but the corporate pressure who manages your community. And I'll show you the line item in the contract or your budget that explains why your neighbors keep getting violation letters every time they sneeze in the street. It isn't a mystery, it's just a revenue model. So, how do you fix an HOA? Let's start with the egomaniac board members, not with the money or the violations. We'll deal with those in just a minute, but with people, because everything else in this video is a decision, and decisions get made by whoever is sitting at that table. As I've already said, I believe most board members are genuinely doing their best to help manage the community. But there are some who are clearly in it for themselves. The board member who destroys a community comes really in a few different flavors. Just as nobody wants Cousin Eddie, nobody wants a mini dictator who deputizes himself or herself. That is flavor number one. You aren't law enforcement, you're not the IRS, you're a volunteer with a clipboard and a rule book that you didn't even write. If you have someone like that on your board, get enough votes to kick them out of the club. Now again, we all know the stereotypes, and nobody wants people like them running the community. Not even other board members want them on the board. But there are quieter problems that they cause if they are on the board. The second flavor is board members that treat the budget like a slush fund. The dog park isn't for the community, it's for their precious little Frenchie. The landscaping upgrades happen to start at their cul-de-sac. And again, if you have someone on the board who treats the HOA's budget like it's theirs to fund their own wants, not the community's needs, get them off the board. The next flavor is maybe more subtle, but does more damage. That's the board member who blocks every dues increase and kills every special assessment, not out of discipline or even concern for the neighborhood, but because they personally can't afford it. So they vote no every year, and the whole community suffers because one very vocal board member can't afford the increase. So how do you get rid of these type of board members? You fix this the old boring way. You get good, competent people to run the community. You don't try to reason with them, you outvote them. If you're on the board, you probably know in most associations the board can't just kick somebody off. They can't kick off a fellow director from the board. That takes the owners, and usually a large portion of them. What the board can do, however, is they can strip them of their title. They can strip them of president or treasurer or secretary. A majority of the vote can strip him or her of any real power. He keeps his seat, but he loses the gavel and the checkbook and the reason he probably wanted the job to begin with. And if you're a homeowner watching this, that seat is yours to take back. Open your bylaws, find the removal section. It'll tell you 3 specific things: how many signatures you need to force a special meeting, how much notice you have to give, and how many votes it takes to remove him or her. Sometimes that's a majority, sometimes it's more. Then follow it exactly. Miss a notice deadline and he stays, and now he knows that you're coming after him. All right, this now brings us to problem number 2, deferred maintenance, which is what causes special assessments. Maybe they don't hate or even really notice deferred maintenance, but they sure as hell hate special assessments. Every community should have 2 types of budgets: their operating budget for their fiscal year and the reserve fund for major future repairs. What people don't consider is that many communities have money going toward what people want instead of what is actually needed. The pickleball court gets resurfaced because the community up the street resurfaced theirs and now it's a competition. Meanwhile, the retaining wall is leaning. There's a crack running through the parking structure, and repaving the driveway has been on the next year's list since 2019. And it isn't that boards are dumb. Look at what each choice buys you. Approve the dog park and people thank you at the mailbox. Approve $40,000 for a retaining wall that nobody's ever even looked at, and people ask why their dues went up. Boards fund what gets them thanked. Deferred maintenance stacks up and leads to special assessments in every case. That's why boards need to make long-term financial decisions by using a reserve study. The study should inform your year-to-year budget. I like honest truth, so I'm going to say the part that most other people in the industry aren't going to tell you. A reserve study by itself doesn't fix this. A reserve study is just a photograph. The problem is that having one and using one are 2 wildly different things. Many communities have a reserve study. Almost nobody knows what to do with it. It gets emailed to the board once and it lives in someone's download folder, and maybe at best someone references it during a budget season. And again, it's not because boards are lazy. It's because this dense PDF is a terrible place to manage a 20-year financial plan. It might have been true the day it was created, but prices moved. The roof got another year older. You spent some of the money. None of that shows up in that PDF because the PDF can't update itself. You have to hire the firm to come back out to update the study. They intentionally make it this way. That gap is what we built Solume for. It shows you where the money actually is, where the shortfalls are, and what's landing in the next 3 or 5 or 10 years, so you know if you're on target or if you're just hoping that things are going to be okay. Our all-in-one management software takes what's in the study and it makes it something that you can actually work from. You can see what's coming, what you've got, whether you're on track, and it is updated as things change. You can find more information at solume.com. But you can actually start this process tonight with what you already have. Pull your reserve study out. Write down every item due in the next 5 years and what it's going to cost. Now put your current reserve balance next to that number. If it doesn't even come close, you don't have a savings problem. You probably have a planning problem. And a planning problem is fixable, but only if you can see it. Again, you can find more information at Solume.com. So we've addressed the board member with an agenda. That's reason number one, people hate HOAs. And we just covered deferred maintenance that leads to special assessments. That's reason number two, which leaves the petty violation letters. Reason number three that people hate the HOA. We already said the rules aren't the problem. Enforcement is. So let's talk about where enforcement actually comes from. Some of it is from the sheriff we discussed, the guy with the clipboard who appointed himself. You know how to deal with him now. But some of those letters aren't coming from a neighbor at all. They're coming from a company. And that company gets paid every time a violation letter goes out. Legitimate violations exist, right? The collapsed porch, the dog barking all night that keeps the whole neighborhood up. Those matter. That's why the rules are there. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the letter that goes out because the trash can was visible a few hours early, or the letter about a kid's bike in the front yard, the letter about what shade of beige that you're off. Here's a question for you. At your next board meeting, you can ask this. How many violation letters did we send last year? Just ask that question. Most boards have no idea, or they're just going to sidestep the question because it's uncomfortable. You know what the landscaping costs, and they'll tell you that pretty quickly. But the thing your neighbors are angriest about, somebody is anticipating that money. Many times, if the violations seem excessive, you have to ask yourself, what is the incentive? Is it just keeping the neighborhood standard up, or is there something else going on? Some management companies charge your association a fee for every violation letter they send. $5, $10, $15, whatever it is, which means the company deciding whether your neighbor's trash can was out too long gets paid when the answer is yes. So they're actively looking for violations. That's real, and you should read your contract or your budget or take a deeper look at your monthly statements. You're likely not going to find some line item that just says like violation income for a property manager, but look at another line item. It's often called administrative charges. Often there's a lot buried in that category called administrative charges. Now, I want you to ask for a line item breakdown of that general category. But I also want to talk about something that maybe is a little closer to home, because your management company isn't the only culprit that does this. A lot of times it is the board too. Again, open up your budget, go to the revenue side, the money coming in. That might say something like dues and interest, maybe clubhouse rentals. And then on a lot of budgets, there's a line that says fine income or violation income with a number next to it. Sit with that for a second. That is not a guess. That's a projection. That's somebody's plan. Somebody sat in a room and decided how much money this community expects to collect from its own neighborhood this year beyond assessments, and then they put that into the budget assuming that the money is going to show up. And once it's in there, now it's got to get hit. Not because anybody is being diabolical, but because the budget doesn't balance without it. Come October, and if you're $8,000 short of the number that you need to hit, now suddenly somebody starts driving the neighborhood a little slower and a little more frequently. Now, go back to that guy from part one, the one who kills every dues increase because he personally can't afford it. Where do you think that money comes from instead? He didn't save the community a dime, he just moved the bill onto the neighbors who get caught. So here's the fix. And it's maybe unpopular because it means the board has to give something up. Take fine income out of your budget. Not the fines, just the revenue line. Rules still exist. Cousin Eddie still gets a letter about his motorhome, but you stop planning on that money as revenue. If fines come in, great. They go to reserves or some other need. They don't balance your operating budget. Because the second your community needs violations to make budget, you're not enforcing rules anymore. You're collecting. You're acting like the IRS. You're penalizing people because there's a financial incentive. So let's bring this all together. Petty violations, special assessments, and the crazy egomaniac board member. That's the order you feel them in, but you fix them in reverse order, backwards. You start with the egomaniac because he's the one deciding everything else. Take the title or get the votes to take the seat. Then you fix the money, not by slashing the budget, but by looking ahead. You have to have a forward-looking board to look into the future. That's the reserve study. Because the special assessment isn't a surprise. It's a bill that's been coming for 4 years, and it's addressed to the board, but nobody bothered to look into it. They didn't check the numbers. And when you fix the money, the petty violations take care of themselves. Nobody has to go hunting for violations to close a hole in the budget because, well, there isn't one. Here's the part that I want you to sit with. Every board that ever hit this community with a surprise assessment had the information at some point. It was in a study, it was in a bank statement, in a budget that nobody cross-referenced. Nobody was hiding it. They never put the numbers side by side. And that really isn't a money problem. That's a system failure, a looking problem. They just weren't looking in the right place. And you can solve a looking problem by looking with the right systems. You need the right systems in place. And that's what Solume is for. It takes the study you already paid for and turns it into something you can actually manage. You can see what's coming. You can see what you've saved, whether you're on track. Not so you can feel good about it, like, hey, surprise, we're doing our job. So that when somebody stands up at the annual meeting and asks if their dues are going up, you can answer them honestly. Visit Solume.com to book a quick call to see whether our platform and our system is even right and can help your community. Because your neighbors don't generally hate the concept of an HOA. That's probably why they chose to live there to begin with. They hate being surprised. They hate being ignored and being fined by people who were trusted to steward the community in the right direction. You can be the board that people actually respect. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. See you in the next one.